Well, it seems that Kevin Smith he screwed up again. Yeah, apparently, from what Midnight's Edge was able to report, it seems that Kevin Smith, screwed up the origin of Skeletor. Let me explain. You see, even back when the Filmation series came out, the origin of how Skeletor came to be was always like, up in the air. It's like you didn't know exactly which was the true origin. And some basically, according to what Midnight's Edge pointed out, would point to him being from like another dimension in a world of Skeletor-like people. But we never had any true concrete confirmation about that being fact. And it wasn't until about the 2002 series, which I love about that series, that they actually gave him a legitimate origin. Basically, he made them Randor's, I guess you could say his brother or his stepbrother or something like that. And his name was Kaldor. And basically what happened in a conflict to try to take the throne, which he rightfully felt was his by birthright anyway, he ends up getting scarred. Basically, his face gets scarred with some acid or something like that, and it's through some magic by Evil Lyn, I believe, that we see that the result is Kaldor becomes Skeletor, and he changes his name to Skeletor. But what Midnight's Edge was getting at here by saying that he screwed it up again, basically as far as the He-Man mythos goes. Basically, in conjunction with the Revelation series, it seems, well, not it seems, but, Dark Horse Comics basically released some prequels, if you will, some prequel issues to Revelation to give us more background and detail to, what we were going to get. Kind of, give the newer, viewers and everything an idea of what He-Man was. And apparently it seems that not even the comics, are a safe haven for these characters, because it's here in this comic where Skeletor's origin kind of lines up to one of the more projected origins of the earlier Filmation, where he comes from a world of skeleton-like people, or basically people like him with a skeleton head and just a flesh and blood body. And apparently, according to this comic, he was a good guy. He was a good person. And, he basically served his people. He protected his family. He had a wife. He had a kid, if you will. And, with any tragic story, I guess you could say, for a potential villain, if not literal villain, basically, Skeletor's family is taken away from him violently by the Ram people. And what happens is that, he wants vengeance. He vows vengeance, if you know what I mean. And this is where, what's interesting about the flashback in the comic is this is where Hordak is introduced in. Yeah, the same Hordak from Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, Masters of the Universe 2002. In fact, they used in the comics the Masters of the Universe 2002 design of Hordak for this flashback. And it's here where we find out that basically, just like, Anakin becomes basically blinded and manipulated by the Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, Skeletor becomes blinded and manipulated by Hordak. And he falls into Hordak's servitude on the condition that Hordak lives up to his end of the bargain to bring back his wife and his kid. If Skeletor does his bidding and surrenders the planet over to him, or at least control of it. And, Skeletor does that. Skeletor basically betrays his people and over to Hordak. And Hordak, does keep his, his end of the bargain, but only part of it. he keeps his end of the bargain by basically bringing back the child and not the wife. And basically the reason for that is I think it's implied that Hordak, and I'll provide a link at the end to the video so you guys can check it out yourself. It's implied that Hordak basically lets Skeletor know, hey, you now have the power to be able to do that, or eventually you will have the power, down the line to do that, but you got to seek it elsewhere, if you know what I mean. And it also kind of gives us an origin of how he's got the ram head on his staff, and that's basically because he decapitated the head of one of the ram people that invaded their home and put it on the staff. But what's interesting about this, even though this sounds all intriguing and sounds kind of like, hey, it would work, essentially making, Skeletor a tragic villain in the end, what really hurts this, when it's all said and done, is it seems like Skeletor made it up. Yeah, he's telling the story to Evil Lyn in the prequel comic in this issue, and Evil Lyn doesn't buy it. She doesn't buy it for 1 second. And Skeletor has this line in there like, well, what gave it away? So it seems like what Kevin Smith has done with the comics, as well as what he and others have done with the show, he and Robert David, I think, have done with the comics, as well as what they did with the show, is they basically changed up the origin of a character, or changed the personality of a character to the point that now when you try to figure out what the origin is, like Skeletor's, it's optional. Like, was he really telling the truth? Or did he get so exaggerated in his telling of the truth that Evil Lyn didn't believe him? Or did he manipulate the truth? Like he was telling the truth, but he manipulated to where it sounded unbelievable to someone like Lyn. We don't know. But yeah, apparently, Kevin Smith, ruined the origin. Because a lot of people, even before the whole Filmation, even during, I should say, the whole Filmation deal and the run with DC Comics and Star Comics and all of them, there was always this, talk about what was, Skeletor's origin, how he came to be. And like I said, the 2002 series gave us a definitive, in my opinion, definitive real origin to this character, which I believe is the true canon origin for the character. But even before then, back when I was a kid, when this came out, basically it was debated back and forth, like, within the comics and stuff of how Skeletor came to be. And some would say, he came from another dimension, like I said, where, there's a planet full of Skeletor-like people. Some would say that he is Keldor, the stepbrother, if you will, of Randor, and basically that he went to another dimension, the same dimension where these Skeletor-like people are, and that's where he became a Skeletor-like person himself. There was a lot of different, theories of, what the true origin was. And in my opinion, when the 2002 series came around, they definitely nailed what I believe was the definitive origin of how he came to be. Now, Midnight's Edge did agree that if the origin that we got in the Dark Horse comic, was true or has any truth to it, it could be, if it wasn't, basically twisted on us at the end, it could be, looked at as something that would kind of motivate Skeletor to do what he wants, because yes, Hordak in the story brought the child back, or brought his kid back, but he didn't bring back the wife. And basically alluding to Skeletor that this, you got to have a greater power to do that, and that greater power has to come from something like, Castle Grayskull, to make it happen, then so be it. But yeah, it seems that, if there's any truth to that, later on, if we find out if there's any truth to that in the second half of the show, then yeah, maybe that might be a redeemable quality. Not much, but a tiny redeemable quality to kind of at least give us an understanding as to why he's been after Grayskull this whole time, why he wants to be a master of the universe, if you will, why he was determined to become and has become at the end of the first half of the show, Skelegod. It would explain a lot, even by a tiny bit. But we don't know if that's going to be revealed or anything because of the fact that, it was twisted at the end as whether it was true. Basically it was twisted at the end to make us believe, was it true? Was it false? Was there any truth to it? We don't know, and that's what upset a lot of people about this. A lot of fans, like, it's one thing for Kevin Smith and Robert David and Tom Baselli, to do what they've done already with Revelation, but for them to go out and do this to a character to where it looked like, okay, we had a definitive origin with, thanks to the 2002 series, an origin that pretty much was kept true even throughout other interpretations. For them to kind of change it up and do it like this, it just really didn't sit well with a lot of fans apparently. But yeah, we'll see what the end result is. I mean, if there is any truth to this, if there is any truth to this in the end, it's going to be, very intriguing. It's going to be, it's going to be very intriguing, interesting, and like I said, even if there is a tiny bit of truth, and part of what we, is revealed in the comic, the prequel comic, has truth to it, then yeah, that might give it a bit of a redeemability, a bit of a very tiny redeemable quality to it, but that's about it. The rest is going to be up to how the second half of the show is presented. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, apparently Skeletor's origin was changed up to being not definitive, as in my opinion, the 2002 series made it, but now up to being optional. Like, is there truth? Whether or not it was one way or was another. So again, we'll see what occurs. We'll see what happens. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the live chat during the premiere of this video. Like it. Like the video, that is. But again, let me know what your thoughts are on this whole situation. And I am out.